And maybe you'll find this as funny as I did, but we're going to be talking about the root cause of skin symptoms. Okay. And this can be a sensitive topic for some, given the nature of which aesthetics is our skin, right? A lot of the times this can be really important. And while my title may be more gender specific, this discussion does apply to both men and women. Okay. If you haven't heard this ad before, the cosmetic company was like, maybe it's, Maybelline. Maybe she was just born with it. Maybe it's her microbiome. Okay. And so we're going to talk about what this all means in a second. But when we talk about our skin is our largest organ in the body, and it's going to help assist us with detox from hormone imbalances and environmental toxins and pathogens in the gut. And more often than not, we'll see a connection between skin health and a compromised gut. And that's what we're going to dive into the physiology today. And like I said, this can be a sensitive topic for some. And so I want to remind you, like, nothing is wrong with you if you have these symptoms. Your body's just giving us information as to where we can resolve dis-ease and do so at the root. So this is a safe space. It's going to continue to be. And I hope you're just as excited as I am to dive in. We'll go through these one by one, but the most common skin conditions that I hear about are going to be acne, eczema, which is also known as AD, atopic dermatitis, rosacea, and then these white spots that have gotten a little more activity in our Slack group, right? And so these are actually fungal spots. So all of these are diseases of either skin barrier dysfunction and or inflammation. Okay, so we need to know that it's not necessarily what's going on with the skin itself, something with the skin barrier and then underlying inflammation. In the same way that we can have leaky gut, which we're going to get into, we can have what's called leaky skin. Okay, so if there is weak skin in general, like the integrity of the skin is compromised, or you have an injury or something, right? It's cut open, then things can get in, like allergens and bacteria, toxins. That's pretty intuitive, right? But what's interesting is the same things that damage the skin barrier are also the same things that can get in there. And so environmental bacteria, pollutants in the air, sometimes foods and waters and other carcinogens, and we get this buildup of toxicity that's coming from the outside. And so when we talk today, it's going to be mostly about focusing on the inside because of all the toxicity that we're working with on the outside. So what we're seeing here is food allergies are far less common. Okay, far less common. These are things that are in the external world that we want to pay attention to when it comes to our skin. Food allergies are less likely to be common in adulthood. It's more of a trigger for children. Okay. That's why you hear of kids like you can't, send your kid to school with PB&Js because, somebody's allergic, right? And a lot of times we grow out of these things. But 75% of the food-induced flares that we get are primarily from milk. So dairy, wheat, egg products, soy, and peanuts. And nightshades were something that were brought up. It is something to consider. Nightshade vegetables, such as like tomatoes and eggplants and potatoes, they all contain solanine. Tobacco's in this as well. Solanine can increase the leakiness of your intestines, which we're going to talk a lot about, and this leads to inflammation. So some people are sensitive to nightshades and not everybody. But as we just talked about, and you hear me say it plenty, like we can have food allergies present, and we absolutely need to respect those. But food sensitivities are not a root cause. Okay. Food sensitivities are a reaction. They are not a root cause. So we want to get to the root cause of where food sensitivities are. We have to look at the gut and its immune system. And the average adult has 3 to 5 pounds of these microbes or gut bugs in your stomach. And they are living there rent-free. Okay. And we do need these freeloaders. All right. They can't survive without us, and we actually can't survive without them. They do make things in our body that we need, like vitamin B12, butyrate, and they crowd out some of the bad guys in the gut. So that's, in this sense, that's where they pay rent, right? They're giving us some good stuff that we need. They need us. We need them. All right. They help create a good ecosystem in your gut, which is really important because 70% of your immune system is in the gut. Let me say that again. 70% of your immune system is in the gut. And so if we're dealing with chronic illness or chronic inflammation and reactions, our immune system needs to be able to fight them. And so if we have a calm gut, we're going to have a calm immune system. We're going to make sure everybody has a really good understanding of what leaky gut is, okay? Because this is where things can go wrong. If we have an imbalance in gut bacteria and we have an overload of toxicity, this leads to leaky gut, where things can enter the bloodstream that shouldn't be there. And that's what triggers systemic inflammation that shows up on your skin. Okay, that's why you're like, we're talking about skin conditions. Why are we talking about gut? This is why. Okay, because it shows up on the skin from a reaction that's happening inside the microbiome. So this is a graphic that I love to use to help educate on leaky gut. So on the left-hand side, you're going to see this diagram. It's a cross-section of your intestines, okay, your guts. At the bottom portion here, this light pink area, this is the outside of your intestines, okay? This is like the last line of defense before things get into your bloodstream, all right? This blue portion over here is the inside of your intestines. This is what's called the gut lumen, and this is where stuff is floating around, as you can see up here, where they're lined up to be eliminated in stool. And this is also where nutrient absorption can take place, okay? And then this pink wave pattern that's going up and down, okay, it's made up of epithelial cells. It's a single-celled wall. You can think of it as like a little brick wall that's held together with these tight junctions. And they have these little finger-like projections on top that grab the nutrients that are floating around. Okay, so kind of from in to out, we have stuff floating up here. It could be stuff that we ingested through food, drink, air, right? Good or bad, okay? We have the intestinal wall that's going to be absorbing some of those nutrients. And then we have the immune response, which is the last thing before the bloodstream, okay? And it's really important because we don't want things to get into your bloodstream that don't need to be there, right? Now on the right-hand side, we see what's called leaky gut. Okay, what happens is there's sometimes these bad bacteria hanging out, or toxins or antibiotics you've heard can be an issue. And what can happen is it can attach themselves to these epithelial cells, okay, those bricks. And it's going to break these bricks down and force its way through the immune response, okay, that light pink area, and cause a problem in the immune system. And if your immune system is already down, okay, some of these toxins and bad bacteria can then get into the bloodstream. All right, this is a problem. This is what leaky gut is, okay? The bad bacteria and the other toxins getting through past the immune system, causing a response, and then into the bloodstream. All right, no wonder you feel bad. Okay, stuff that shouldn't be there. And so while things that are, flowing into your immune system that shouldn't be, if we remember these little finger-like projections that are supposed to be grabbing nutrients, they also become shorter or atrophied. Okay, so we kind of have a double whammy step here. Bad stuff is getting in and we're not picking up enough of the good stuff. So I want you to do this with me if you have like something on your desk, like a phone or maybe like a notepad. And I just want you to pick it up. Go ahead and pick it up. Whatever it is, pick it up. Yep. I had my passports here. That's what I have. All right, put it down. Okay, I want you to make a fist like this. Try to pick it up. You're like, you're crazy, right? You can't pick it up. That's what's going on in your gut here, okay? You lose your fingers in the gut, all right? It's pretty easy to pick up stuff when you have the right size fingers, those projections to get nutrients, okay? And so over time, when we have this gut damage, this leaky gut, it's a lot harder to pick up some of these nutrients that we need that are important and crucial to our function, all right? So bad stuff coming in, good stuff cannot come in as easily. And this is where we start to see immune issues, okay? Leaky gut, joint issues, thyroid problems, and skin issues, as well as some of the food sensitivities y'all dropped, okay? So if you were somebody with 1 or 2 food sensitivities before, now you might have multiple. So root cause healing here is really just ensuring that we can repair those holes, all right, in the wall, as well as stopping anything that might be breaking down that wall. Last little bit of this physiology here. We're gonna talk about LPS real fast. We just want to know what some of these gut bacteria are that are getting into your immune system. Okay, they're called LPS. These like little crazy hairy pickles. Okay, just remember that crazy hairy pickles, and they're a toxic substance that's found on the outside of your gut, and they can be really harmful. And so when these little hairy pickles are getting through into your immune system, okay, they're going to cause problems like acne and eczema and rosacea and even other chronic diseases like heart disease, diabetes. All right, so they are not good. We don't want them, and this little guy's going to come back later on. So let's get into some of the specific conditions Now that we have a background as to how inflammation is, how it's triggered. First one's acne. This one's the most common. Acne affects up to 50 million Americans every year, right? It's the most common skin condition in the country. And there's a few root causes to this. All right, the first is when we have leaky gut, all right? We get those little LPS, those little hairy pickles that go through and they trigger inflammation that's going to trigger sebum production. Okay, sebum is an oily substance that it's actually good. You need it to protect your skin and your hair, but if you have too much of it, it will clog your pores, right? And so this creates a double problem where not only are you having issues with the gut, right? You're going to have issues with an imbalanced microbiome and a lot of sebum production because we also have contributed insulin resistance. Okay. This is common when somebody's like, oh, acne, is it a hormone thing? Sometimes, right? Sometimes because we have this insulin resistance, but that can also be coming from the gut. And if we have blood sugar issues or insulin resistance, then we can have more of this sebum production, right? And then we can continue to see issues. So a lot of the times I'll see insulin resistance be a factor in acne. I'll see missing key bacteria that we need. So there's like an imbalance of the good guys and the bad guys. And a lot of this I'll see in PCOS cases and even eczema as well. And then if we have just an overburden in the liver, right? If we see there's overgrowth of some gut bugs, which you'll see in this little snippet here, it's a GI map of a client I had who was presenting with a lot of bacterial overgrowth and it was showing up on the skin. It had to go somewhere, right? The body is going to try to detox the best it can. Hey, the liver is doing its job, but if there's too much in the system, it will come out as acne. This is also why sometimes when we do go through a detox protocol, and people are detoxing, and if we're not, using enough of our modalities or we need binders or something like that, that it can show up as a detox reaction acne on the skin. The next condition I see a lot is rosacea. This is really common in autoimmune conditions, and rosacea is a flushing of the skin. It can cause like this long-term redness on your face. And in general, the gut inflammation that triggers an immune response, that LPS guy that we keep talking about, okay, that's part of this, right? You're going to notice that in all these conditions. Rosacea has also been linked to H. pylori overgrowth, and H. pylori is a bacteria. And what it does is it will increase the production of certain proteins that actually dilate these blood vessels, which make the redness and the flushing way, way worse, way worse. H. pylori is an LPS producer. Okay, that little pickle guy, he's here. And this bacteria, it's present in the stomach lining. That's where it lives, actually. Estimated like anywhere from 50 to 80% of adults have this. Okay, 50 is like the most conservative estimate. So at least 1 out of every 2 adults has this. And the issues with H. pylori is not only does it neutralize stomach acid, so that's going to lower your stomach acid. And if you already have digestive issues, that can become a problem. It's also linked to peptic ulcers and gastric cancer. So it's definitely something we want to get under control. And it can lead to third issues with the thyroid and autoimmune disease because of its shape and what's called molecular mimicry. So I won't get too much into that, but just for these reasons, if I see H. pylori on a test, even if it's not high and it's present, I always treat it just because the risk to reward ratio is not at all something that I want to take a chance on. So I see eczema a lot. And what eczema is, if you're not familiar, it can cause like dry, cracked and scaly or thickened skin. It can actually be kind of painful too. There's like blisters and burning. And sometimes if you scratch it, it can like weep a little bit. So this is something that is also associated with both leaky skin and leaky gut. And I know some people here today are working through this. So it's really important. When it comes to the leaky skin side of things, so we talked about those food allergens. This is the one that can be triggered the most by food allergens. So like gluten and dairy and eggs, those things can make eczema worse. When it comes to the gut, though, eczema specifically is associated with an overactive immune response. It's called this Th2 immune response, which promotes inflammation. I won't get like too much into the mechanism of it, but what we need to understand is bringing balance to the gut microbiome through eliminating the bad guys and then seeding in with the good guys. It's what's going to bring balance to that immune pathway, so it's not overactive. And just like acne, eczema can show up as a detox reaction. So if you're somebody where it kind of like flares intermittently, a lot of the times this can be the liver more support. And that's why our detox practices are so, so important. Last one that we'll go over before we get into solutions is Candida. Okay. Candida is a fungal organism. It's in our systems in commensal or like normal amounts, but it can overgrow in the gut and lead to all sorts of symptoms that are outside of just gut and skin conditions like brain fog and fatigue and yeast infections. You'll see dandruff and bloating, but something that was brought up a lot in this community, which kind of sparks this call, was like the white spots that people were talking about. And Candida is triggered, of course, with leaky gut, right? You could have guessed that by now, the little pickle LPS, it's everywhere. But Candida also produces acetaldehyde, which is a toxic byproduct of the fungus that can contribute to this inflammation. It actually walks hand in hand with conditions like eczema. So it is something that, again, the primary theme here is that we're seeing this leaky gut over and over and over again. And that's the solution. We got to make sure we plug those holes. So something that's also different, it thrives more on sugar and stress. Okay, sugar and stress aren't going to make the other ones any better, but Candida tends to be a little bit more sensitive. So a diet high in like refined sugars and carbs, so I'm not talking, your fruits, but I'm talking refined sugars, is going to just feed a Candida overgrowth and make it way, way worse. So if we are working on Candida, clean diet is helpful. We don't need to eliminate sugar completely, but we do just need to be mindful. And it's very much driven by stress. There's actually studies that have been shown that they put people on Candida protocols with like supplementation and diet. And then they did one of just like a placebo with just stress management. And the outcomes were the same, like both beneficial, both got better, but it showed that, the stress management of Candida is so, so big. And this is why it can be so hard to eradicate for some people. So very much stress driven, because when our immune system's suppressed, like our natural killer cells and T cells that are needed for controlling these Candida infections tend to be suppressed. Now that we've talked about all these conditions, right? Let's talk about how to resolve them. I'm going to hit 3 pillars or 5. The first is nutrition. Okay. If something is truly inflammatory for you, right, then we want to limit those things. So if you know for certain, and we're in the middle of healing something, we don't want to cause more inflammation in the body. And so oftentimes these things are going to be most usually dairy, especially if we have eczema, gluten, especially if we have like acne, and Candida will often be a trigger there, and nightshades. Okay. So we can talk about that. If those are things you need to limit, you also can just try it, right? Try it, see if you feel better. And then as we continue to heal, we reintroduce those. Because my goal is not for you to live off 10 foods. I want you to eat all the foods and feel good while you're doing so. Where I do like to add in nutrition are foods that are going to be like antimicrobial and antifungal and anti-inflammatory. So you can see these things. Fresh is always going to be more preferred. Cook with this stuff like garlic. We've talked about garlic having fresh garlic will have this compound called allicin, which is really helpful in supporting your immune system. Remember, your immune system, 70% of it is in the gut. Okay. Oregano is awesome. It's great for fighting pathogens. It's really rich in antioxidants and antimicrobial compounds. It's always used in like Mediterranean cooking, which is my favorite. Like if I had to pick a genre of food, it's Mediterranean for sure. So oregano is usually pretty common in those dishes. Clove is a great antifungal. So anybody with like suspected Candida, clove will be your friend. And then thyme is awesome for antimicrobials, which is helpful for like bacterial overgrowth. So if you want to just get like a little shaker with some of these things, that can be helpful. And then my favorite is also coconut oil. I do also put it on top of most of my meals, and I'll use it sometimes in protocols for what's called like oil sweeping. And basically what we do is we sweep out the small and large intestines of anything that shouldn't be there to help clear the gut. So big fan. I also love probiotic rich foods. I prefer getting your probiotics from foods instead of supplementation. And the reason being is if we're getting things from supplements, a lot of the times probiotics are just not up to standard as to what can be actually processed in the gut. If they're not refrigerated, sometimes they aren't the best, or if they're not spore based, they're not the best. So I would prefer that you get it from foods like, the yogurts of the world with live cultures and kefir and sauerkraut and kimchi and all those fun things. Probiotic rich foods are helpful. And then prebiotics and fiber rich foods are the things that feed the probiotics. Okay. So we can eat probiotics, but then we also want to eat the things that are going to feed those probiotics because they're living entities. So things like onions and garlic and asparagus and bananas, those are like the things I eat that are prebiotic rich, and then fiber rich foods like apples, bananas, flax seeds. Those all have good fiber. Pillar 2 that I'm going to address is stress management. And there's 3 parts of stress when we talk about this, right? There's physical, there's emotional, and environmental. Okay. Physically, if there's other stuff going on in the body, right? We've talked about the skin is our largest detox organ. Okay, the skin is the largest detox organ. So we have other stuff we have to detox. We need to address those as well. Part of that is also heavy metal toxicity. Heavy metals will use some of these things as a protective mechanism against the harmful effects of toxicity. So what that means is a bacteria or a fungus will cling on to these heavy metals and use it to like shield themselves from harmful effects of toxicity. And so oftentimes when we have to detox, we really have to clear the liver. We really have to clear the lymphatic system to allow this detox to happen all in one. It can be a lot. Okay. And so all the practices that you know how to do, super important. Castor oil, coffee enemas, if they're applicable for you, rebounding, that's literally like jumping up and down. I've had clients get like adult trampolines. You can just, I know y'all have walking pads. You can just get a trampoline and that'll help your lymphatic drainage. I like massage. You can do self-massage. You can also do other, like go to somebody for a massage, dry brushing, things like that. Emotionally, we want to work on our stress management. We want to make sure that we are not weakening the immune system any more than it already is. Other things that affect the immune system, right? Too much stress, lack of sleep, need to get good sleep, poor diet, alcohol. All right. All of those things are going to give an opportunity for this inflammation to get worse. All right. Stress also does increase the incidence of leaky gut, which is the thing that drives that crazy hairy pickle. And if you took anything from today, it's that we want to reduce that. All right. And then this is super interesting. Getting into the environmental portion, there's a lot of things that can, drive into the skin and cause issues. But the EMFs these are the electromagnetic frequencies that are in our environment. It's just part of being in the world in 2024. Okay. I love technology. I think it's amazing for advancements, but we haven't quite figured out exactly what some of the long-term consequences to our health are going to be. But something we do know is that EMFs, so this is stuff that is given off by our cell phones and Wi-Fi and smart meters and electric cars. Okay. These things are known to trigger some of these pathogens. Okay. Candida, there's pure like links. This is in studies, but it also induces oxidative stress. We talked about that when we talked about being on airplanes. Okay. And when there's more stress on the body, the immune system is downregulated and we tend to have more propensity to have an infection. Okay. It's why if somebody travels, they may experience more symptoms because we have more oxidative stress. We're exposed to radiation. There's a bunch of things at play here. So something I wanted to bring to your attention because I think it is very fascinating as we continue to evolve in this beautiful world, that we also are able to audit our environment and see if it's serving us and where we can control things. So again, and I'm not ever trying to make anybody fearful, right? It's just, we want to be wise when it comes to our tech, especially if we're in a healing journey. I'm going to move on to our final pillar, which is actually supplementation. I don't usually get into this too much, but some of these things are really accessible. So if you're like, I just want to get ahead of the game of leaky gut prevention or things that you are already utilizing. When it comes to supplementation though, if we want to repair the gut lining, you've probably heard that L-glutamine, it's an amino acid. It's going to help repair that gut. So those little bricks that we need to build back up in the gut lining, L-glutamine is awesome for. There's bacteria, Akkermansia. It's a good gut bacteria. On the GI map, it's called Akkermansia muciniphila, and it's Latin and translated, it's like lover of mucus. And what it does is at good levels. And most people actually have this like completely gone from their system, but man, that's usually like a metabolic dysfunction thing. But when we have it at good levels, what can happen is we start to produce a lot more of this good mucus for the gut lining. So we want to make sure we have that in there. You can't just supplement for it though. Otherwise, we wouldn't have issues. We have to make sure there's a house for the Akkermansia, but it is helpful. We do repair the skin barrier with things like omega-3s and vitamin D and zinc. That can help if the integrity of the skin barrier is a dysfunction. And then liver support, right? We talked so much about liver support. NAC is awesome. Glutathione is awesome. Milk thistle, teas, dandelion root teas, all those things you can start to implement as well, right? This isn't just about skin. It can be for anything. I noticed, like, Rory already talks about this, but like, I didn't give you any skin creams, right? Like, I didn't say, do this, use this oil, use this cream, right? Well, the oils can help temporarily. It's not going to get to the root cause. Okay. So if you go through this, we make some changes and you're still experiencing issues, you have data on skin conditions that you have, like, I always encourage testing the gut because it's complicated. Okay. And it's not as simple as just like running a GI map and giving supplements. Okay. We have to respect the gut. There's a reason I don't run it in isolation ever. All right. The gut has its own nervous system. Okay. It's called the second brain for a reason. The gut actually has 100 million neurons, which is more than your spinal cord. I bet you didn't know that. That's crazy, right? It has trillions of bacteria, right? That's that 2 to 5 pounds of gut bacteria, is trillions in there that are producing chemicals and neurotransmitters, which impact mood and stress and anxiety. And your vagus nerve, which we talk about a lot for stress management, is the primary connection between your brain and your gut and how signals get sent there. So if you're like, well, it's a lot. Okay. That's because it is. But I want you to be comforted in knowing that all these foundational principles that we talk about, they're serving your highest good. Okay. If you think this is something you need support with, ask me, please. Please ask me. Don't stay in the shadows. But just know that if you are in the middle of a journey, okay, just be patient, because this too shall pass.